What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at A Clockwork Orange, written and directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, A Clockwork Orange is pretty much a character study on a character named Alex DeLarge, played by Malcolm McDowell. So yeah, that's pretty much what A Clockwork Orange is. This movie is not really, it does not have any plot to it. It's just pretty much getting into the head of a sociopathic teenager. That's what this movie really is about. So, how did this movie handle it? For the most part, I think A Clockwork Orange is a really good movie. I'm gonna get the aesthetics out of the way first, and then we'll dive into the story itself. From an aesthetic standpoint, this movie is beautifully directed by Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick. I have my thoughts and opinions on him, but as a visual artist, the man is fantastic. He's untouchable. He gives the look of this futuristic Britain a very grounded and gritty, crime-ridden look to it. And I can appreciate that. Like, he makes this place look like the worst place in the world to be, especially when you have this group of droogs running around just committing these heinous acts of ultra-violence. And Kubrick really put that aesthetic in there with the not only with his direction, with the direction and the overall production design, but with the music as well. It gives it a very foreboding nature, coupled with his direction and production design, in which the production design of this movie is really, it's very just mind-bogglingly trippy, and the imagery will stay with you for decades. So yeah, from an aesthetic standpoint, this movie gets an A+. Let's dive into the story standpoint. Like I said, this movie does not really have much of a plot. It doesn't really have much of anything. It just is, like I said, it's just a character study. And as a character study, I thought Stanley Kubrick for the most part, did a really good job at getting into the mind of this Alex character, played amazingly by Malcolm McDowell. Malcolm McDowell's performance as Alex deserves all the praise it gets, and it really is a shame that he was never really nominated for an Oscar for this role, because this movie is built on the shoulders of Malcolm McDowell, and if he did not work as the character of Alex, this movie itself would not have worked whatsoever. I don't care how talented Stanley Kubrick is, you need the right actor to bring this character to life, and you couldn't have gotten anyone better than Malcolm McDowell. The way he portrays Alex in the three different sections of this movie is mesmerizing. The first half of this movie, the first act of this movie, Alex is a juvenile delinquent. He and his group of droogs are pretty much a gang running around England. They're beating people up. They're breaking into houses. They're raping women. They're causing all kinds of ultra violence. And McDowell is completely and Alex is completely just a ringmaster to all this chaos. And his droogs pretty much follow his every word. And then when Alex eventually gets caught and gets sent to prison, the government tries to rehabilitate him by trying to reprogram his brain in a way. And again, in this section of the movie, McDowell plays the character now as having some vulnerabilities, because now his brain is being reprogrammed to pretty much be disgusted at the criminal acts that he once committed. Now he's seeing them happen to the first time from a different perspective, and now this starts to manipulate his brain into not wanting to do these heinous acts anymore. And you really get to see the vulnerability of Alex when he's being put through these tests. Overall, very, very solid performance by McDowell in these scenes. Then when we get to the third act, when he finally gets released, he's all rehabilitated. And when Alex is faced with the urge to want to strike, to want to cause an act of violence, he will react with extreme sickness because of it. It's almost as if his brain cannot process it anymore. And as a whole, so Malcolm McDowell's performance as a whole is utterly fantastic, and how he's able to pretty much bring different sides of Alex's personalities to light as the movie progresses. Fantastic acting on the part of Malcolm McDowell. I have no complaints whatsoever with that. I will say this, though. The first act of this movie, I enjoyed it a lot. The second act of this movie, which sees Alex being deprogrammed, was from an overall what they were trying to do. I get it, but I just thought that the second act of this movie is kind of where this film drags way too much, and I think the second act could have been tightened up a little bit if Kubrick would have cut at least 16 minutes, at least 20 minutes from it, and just made it feel more tighter. It's like that second act just drags on. It felt like for an eternity. And then when you get to the third act, the movie picks right back up again, especially when Alex goes to the house of an old man who previously in the movie he had broken into and had crippled him and had raped his wife. And now he's taking refuge at this old man's house. And the only reason why the old man was able to recognize him was because Alex was singing the song "Singing in the Rain" as he did while he raped his wife. And that was the only way that the old man was able to figure out that it was Alex. And he pretty much just set him up once he found that out by playing Beethoven's Ninth, in which Alex starts to reacts very violently to that song whenever it plays because his brain is programmed to reject it in a way. And this causes Alex to fly to pretty much, swan dive out of a window and break all his bones. So yeah, the third act, the first act and the third act of this movie to me are the strongest parts of the movie. That's where the movie is remotely interesting. The second part, okay, in terms of McDowell's performance, it is very interesting and very enjoyable. But in terms of just its overall length and the fact that Kubrick just stretches it out for too long, I would have cut some of it out. There's also this random montage of Alex having a threesome with two girls. Not necessary. It's 2 minutes that I would have gotten rid of because I don't really need it. We already get that he's a juvenile delinquent. I don't need to see every single aspect of Alex causing chaos and just doing things he shouldn't be doing. I don't need to see it. We got it already when he broke into the man's house and raped his wife and crippled him. I don't need to see any more. I get it. Like the first 20 minutes of the movie sees him in his gang committing acts. Anything else to me is it just becomes overkill. Like, okay, I get the point. Let's speed up a little bit. Cut some of this out. You don't need it. The whole relationship that he has with his parents. To me, they don't really serve any purpose except to just be there. They didn't really serve purpose in the first act where Alex was there. And the only purpose they serve in the third act is to, like, hey, Alex, you're rehabilitated, but we can't have you come back to the house because we didn't know you were getting released. And we already have your room being stuff for someone else. And then when you see him again, when they visit Alex in the hospital, he just rejects them flat out. Honestly, truthfully, I wouldn't even have his parents even be characters in the movie because I don't really know what they bring to the table. But Kubrick's commentary on the justice system and rehabilitation of criminals, that's interesting. His take on that is very interesting in this movie, and it does raise questions that you can still bring up today on the whole process of rehabilitation and criminals alike and how the government handles that sort of thing. In that instance, this movie does hold up with that instance, so I give it that. So, yeah, those are pretty much my overall thoughts on A Clockwork Orange. I enjoyed the movie. I like it. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. Okay, those are my thoughts on A Clockwork Orange. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.